The one move where he has my arms behind my back and we're both supposed to drop to the ground at the same time. On cue, I drop and he stays up, dislocated my shoulder. What goes around comes around, and he ended up hurting himself on the set and was out for 2 weeks. So he put one guy's, stunt guy, put his head through the window. Really? He was just supposed to act like he hit him. He actually grabbed the guy and pushed his head through the window.
Steven Seagal built his whole career off playing Hollywood's untouchable tough guy. But behind the cameras, he built a whole other reputation. People who worked with him say he wasn't just difficult. He was a flat-out bully, pushing around anyone he thought he could get away with. But here's the thing. That act didn't scare everybody. Then came DMX, raw energy, wild temper, unpredictable as ever, and the kind of realness you just can't fake.
Police in Newark, New Jersey investigating claims that rap star DMX and his entourage were involved in an early morning robbery. That's when the man says a member of the entourage pulled out a gun and then demanded money. The man says he handed over $3,200 in cash and claims DMX, the rap star, took that money directly out of his hand.
So when their worlds collided, the tension was electric. And Seagal quickly found out he messed with the wrong one. Seagal's name might have once stood tall in Hollywood, but his reputation has been sinking for years. Allegations keep stacking, everything from stalling productions, clashing with crews, harassing women, to even assault accusations. Ask anyone who worked with him and you'll hear the same thing. Steven was a nightmare. Former co-stars and stunt guys describe him as abusive, arrogant, and straight up dangerous. And we're not talking small incidents. This man was notorious for injuring people on set, dislocating shoulders, actually hurting actors during fight scenes, and kicking stuntmen below the belt just to see if they had cups on. Who does?
What I say is law. You disagree? And I started cracking. I was like, I thought he was kidding. We were just hanging out.
Yeah.
And he Aikito'd me against a brick wall. Pow! Knocked all the air out of me. I was like, what? What?
Most folks just swallowed their anger because Seagal was a star and nearly untouchable in the industry. But there was one man who wasn't scared of him for a second, DMX. And that's where the story gets spicy. See, DMX was making his move into Hollywood and landing big roles. His biggest yet was the 2001 action flick Exit Wounds. And fate paired him up with Steven Seagal himself. The set was chaotic from the start. Day one, tragedy struck when a stuntman lost his life in an accident. And from there, things only got darker. Then came the wildest stories of Seagal just being Seagal. Like the time he straight up threw a stuntman through real glass instead of the sugar glass setup. The poor guy was only supposed to fake the crash for the cameras. But Seagal decided to go full savage and launch him through an actual window. Now let's talk about the infamous showdown between Seagal and DMX, the one that left DMX's shoulder wrecked. Here's how it all went down.
One move where he has my arms behind my back and we're both supposed to drop to the ground at the same time. On cue, I drop and he stays up, dislocated my shoulder.
Before cameras even rolled, fight choreographer Dion Lamb had carefully mapped out every move. He rehearsed the scenes with Seagal's stunt double Joe Baccaro and DMX's double Errol Giant. They even showed the whole routine to Seagal and the producers, who all agreed the choreography worked perfectly. Everything was set. Fast forward 6 weeks to the day of filming the big fight. Dion's crew refreshes the moves, ready to shoot. But out of nowhere, Seagal throws a tantrum. He suddenly claims the choreography doesn't work and demands everything be changed to match his style. What followed was pure chaos. A screaming match between Seagal, Dion, director Andrzej Bartkowiak, and co-producer Dan Ralloy that went on for over an hour. Finally, Seagal storms off set, only to come back and shoot the fight exactly the way Dion had planned in the first place. But of course, being Seagal, he couldn't just follow the script once the cameras rolled.
Police pull us over. Police pull us over, and they like, yo, license registration, woo-woo. X gets to tell the story like, well, this is not really my car. The police said, all right, I understand what you're saying. It's the label guy's car, and you guys took the car, whatever. But I'm not going to lock you up, but you're also not going to go anywhere in this car. So he takes us out the car. So now we on the side of the road.
During a move where both he and DMX were supposed to hit the floor together, Seagal pulled a sneaky switch up, staying on his feet and forcing DMX to crash down awkwardly. The result? A brutal dislocated shoulder for DMX. The pain was so bad he had to take a few days off filming. And here's where the real heat kicks in. According to whispers on set, when DMX came back after healing up, he wasn't about to just forgive and forget. Word is, during one of their fight scenes, DMX flipped the script and let a real punch fly right into Seagal. That hit from DMX was way harder than anything planned in the script, and everybody on set knew it. This wasn't some camera trick or light stunt tap. People swear X connected for real. The whole set froze in tension, and you could feel the energy shift instantly. But if you thought that was the end of their beef, you'd be wrong.
Really? You know, what goes around comes around, and he ended up hurting himself on the set and was out for 2 weeks. So,
Good.
Later in an interview, X hinted that karma had its way with Seagal. He dropped the line, "What goes around comes around," then confirmed Seagal ended up injuring himself so badly on set, he was out of commission for 2 weeks. Now, to a regular moviegoer, that might not sound too wild. Injuries happen on action films all the time. But to people who knew DMX, fans, industry insiders, even crew members, the whispers started immediately. Was Seagal's accident really just bad luck, or did DMX play a part, directly or indirectly? Because here's the truth. DMX wasn't the type to let anybody punk him. He carried that raw, unpredictable edge with him everywhere. It didn't matter if you were a martial artist, a big-name action star, or Hollywood royalty. If you crossed him, you were gonna pay for it. That's why some believe Seagal's accident might not have been so accidental after all. And X didn't shy away from throwing shade either.
All right, I'm riding with you. Let's go. Jumps in the car with him. We ride out. Come to find out, he stole the car that we're riding in. He stole the car we riding in. He stole it from Michael Kaiser. Okay. It was Kaiser's car. He stole the car.
In interviews down the line, he kept firing shots at Seagal, making it crystal clear there was no respect there. At one point, he even admitted that hitting Seagal harder than he was supposed to was his way of checking him, pushing back against the arrogance he felt from Seagal on set. Then came the interview with Raptor, where DMX unleashed without filters. He straight up called Seagal, quote, a ish head with spray on hair. He even clowned the way Seagal talked, saying he sounded like some old slave master. That raw, unscripted punch might not have made it into the final cut of Exit Wounds, but it lit the rumor mill on fire about just how toxic things really were between those two. At the end of the day, the clash between them made perfect sense. Seagal was a Hollywood bully who leaned on his Aikido moves and star power to push people around. DMX was the total opposite, a grinder from the streets, fearless and impossible.
Man, to run rampant with DMX, we should definitely be happy to be alive. We was in the shootout broad daylight. That was life or death.
DMX didn't care about Hollywood status, rules, or reputations, and he definitely wasn't about to let anybody disrespect him. His wild side was legendary. Ask anyone close to X, and they'll tell you the same thing. Rolling with him meant chaos was guaranteed, and you never knew how the night would end. Take Swizz Beatz, for example. He's got endless stories about the madness. One time he and X hopped in a cab, and when they got to their stop, Swizz reached for his wallet to pay. That's when DMX snapped on him. To X, cabs were always free rides. Paying was never part of the plan. But Swizz quickly pointed out the driver had a gun sitting right next to him. That's the only reason X cooled off and agreed to pay up, because otherwise that free ride could have ended with them catching a bullet. And then there's the wild ride with Ja Rule. At the peak of their fame, DMX convinced Ja to jump in a Mercedes-Benz with him.
It shows up. At this time, DMX is walking around with his dogs. But by the time I got to the studio, the reporter had gotten robbed. DMX basically robbed the reporter with his dog. No gun, just the dog.
Problem was, it wasn't their car. It belonged to Def Jam exec Michael Kaiser. Even worse, DMX didn't even have a license. But did that stop him? Not a chance. He slid into the driver's seat and started flying through Miami like he owned the streets, while Ja sat in the passenger seat holding on for dear life. Of course, it didn't take long before the cops pulled them over. When they asked for license and registration, DMX kept it real and admitted the car wasn't his. Normally, that's an automatic trip to jail. But these weren't just two random dudes. This was DMX and J. Rule at the height of their fame. The cops actually let them walk, just telling them they couldn't keep driving the Benz. But here's where it gets even crazier. Instead of calling a ride, DMX stepped right out into the street, stuck his thumb up, and started hitchhiking. A random woman recognized them instantly and pulled over. Not only did she give them a lift, she brought them straight to her grandmother's house, where the entire neighborhood came out to see them like heroes. What started as a potential arrest turned into a straight-up block party. Kids were lining up for pictures, food was being served, and the whole neighborhood was buzzing just because DMX showed up. That was the kind of energy he carried. Unpredictable, larger than life, and always turning chaos into a scene.
DMX came in, and DMX started questioning the reporter and told the reporter to run his take off his whatever he had.
And then comes Aries Spears' story, one that still gives people chills. Aries says he was at an event promoting his comedy CD, going around asking celebs to endorse it. When he got to DMX, though, things went left fast. X wasn't feeling the impressions Aries had been doing of him, so DMX pulled him aside into a locker room. But here's the twist. Almost 30 guys followed them in, circling Aries and DMX like something straight out of a mob flick. Then a bodyguard slammed the door shut and blocked the exit. Aries tried to keep it cool and pitch the CD like normal, but DMX cut him off and said, "Come to my hotel later, let me hear it. If it's good, cool. If it's not," and then he just trailed off. That's when things got scary, because Aries swears DMX pulled a razor blade straight from under his tongue.
Show, me, him, and Big Pun in Brooklyn. And after the show, we stopped at the gas station and he saw a dude with a chain and he stuck him up in the gas station. Meanwhile, the whole crowd was just going, "Stop, shut him down, open up, chop, ho." Like DMX was.
After that, Aries didn't even think about showing up at that hotel. But the DMX chaos didn't stop there. His dogs weren't just pets. They were partners in crime, literally. There are endless stories of him rolling deep with his pit bulls and even using them to jack people. Jermaine Dupri once shared one insane memory where DMX robbed a music reporter with nothing but his dog by his side. No guns, no threats, just the raw intimidation of his canine was enough. This all went down during a studio session for Get Yours Right, a track off Dupri's 1998 album, Life in 1472. Jermaine said it was one of the craziest nights of his career, and he even broke it down years later in a video on his Instagram. The setup was simple. Dupri had arranged for a Source magazine writer to come through the New York studio to cover the making of the track. The plan was to give fans a behind-the-scenes look at how legends like DMX created music. The reporter showed up early, but had no idea what was about to happen once DMX walked through that door. Then DMX rolled into the studio, 2 pit bulls at his side like bodyguards. At first, everything seemed normal, until Jermaine Dupri arrived and realized the vibe had completely shifted. That reporter from the Source, he'd just been robbed. But this wasn't your average stick-up. According to Dupri, DMX didn't need a weapon. He used his dog as pure intimidation.
Cabs, I used to hate it though. I'm like, man, why are we hopping like a $3 cab?
He pressed the reporter with questions, locked eyes with him, and then hit him with the command to run your ish. Meaning hand over everything, from jewelry to personal items. The crazy part, the dog never even had to move. His presence alone was enough to make the reporter give it all up. And here's the thing. This wasn't some one-time story. Jadakiss backed it up years later in a 2019 interview on Power 106. He laughed about how back in Yonkers, DMX used to run the streets with his pit bull Boomer. No gun, no blade, just Boomer. If you saw them coming, you already knew what time it was. Jada even joked, it wasn't armed robbery, it was dog robbery. He said it best. One day, X was out in the hood robbing people with his pit bull. The next, he was shooting movies with Jet Li. That was the duality of DMX. Unpredictable and wild, but unstoppable. And it wasn't just his crew telling these stories. His ex-wife, Tashara Simmons, once admitted that DMX had that bond with dogs from way back. She claimed that at just 11 years old, she saw him command a pit bull to snatch an old woman's purse. The dog was so well trained it carried out the robbery without hesitation, like it was second nature. Even Fat Joe had wild memories. He recalled one night after a show with Big Pun, they stopped at a gas station when a guy walked in wearing a flashy chain. Without missing a beat, DMX straight up robbed him on the spot. And then there was the fan story out of Newark, New Jersey. A 21-year-old fan claimed he stopped to talk to X at a gas station after a show. But instead of getting a picture, he says somebody in X's entourage flashed a...
You know somebody lying when they showed up at what had happened
I was rushing for a flight.
Right.
And this dude in the raggedy ass Honda, he driving wild slow.
Right.
Now, usually if I'm in a rush, you know what I'm saying, and I'm in that truck, I hit the lights and, throw the siren or whatever, and they get out the way.
Right.
But he was just totally disrespecting my...
And DMX himself snatched a paycheck worth $3,200 right out of his hand. For that fan, meeting his idol turned into the worst night of his life. Cameras reportedly caught parts of the incident, and DMX's crew peeled out of the gas station in a fleet of black Escalades like something out of a crime movie. The story went national overnight, but X brushed it off like it was nothing. He laughed during interviews, saying he wouldn't even remember something so small. And besides, why would he rob anyone when he made more money from a single show than what the victim claimed was stolen? His lawyer even mocked the whole thing in court, asking if anyone really believed DMX would pull a gas station stick-up on two random dudes. In the end, there wasn't enough evidence, and police dropped it. But legal trouble followed DMX everywhere he went. He wasn't one of those rappers who just rapped about the life. He actually lived it.
Everybody knew when certain people was getting robbed and certain they knew it was him.
Over the years, he faced accusations of robbery, assault, tax evasion, carjacking, and more. But one of the craziest chapters came in June 2004 at New York's JFK International Airport. DMX was 33, right at the peak of his fame, but what happened that day felt straight out of an action thriller. Reports say X pulled up with his friend Jackie Hudgens and started claiming he was a federal agent. He even drove his SUV straight through a parking lot gate, telling the stunned attendant he was on official government business. And it didn't stop there. He allegedly tried to drag a man, Sergei Prokopenko, out of his own car by the seatbelt buckle, basically a carjacking attempt in broad daylight. By the time police stormed in, they didn't just find DMX in the middle of this chaotic scene, they also searched his SUV and uncovered a stash that made headlines. Crack rocks, diazepam, oxycodone, and even a billy club.
It's a free ride. Cab is a free ride. I'm not paying. Out of here. I paid him no mind. That's the only thing I was paying him, no mind.
The charges stacked up instantly. Narcotic possession, impersonating a federal officer, weapons charges, DUI, and more. For fans, it was jaw-dropping. For DMX, it was just another headline in a long line of scandals that seemed to follow him wherever he went. By December 2004, DMX managed to skate by with a conditional discharge. But the legal drama didn't slow down. Just a year later, in 2005, he pled guilty to violating parole, dragging him right back into the courtroom again. Meanwhile, the man at JFK, Sergei Prokopenko, wasn't letting it slide. He came after DMX with a massive $4 million lawsuit, claiming assault, battery, and emotional distress. The court didn't hand him millions, but X was still forced to cough up a brutal $240,000 settlement. And here's the wildest part. DMX's lawyer stood by him, saying X still felt justified in trying to pull Sergei over, just because the guy wouldn't get out of the way. What do you think about all this madness? Was X reckless or just misunderstood? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and I'll see you on the next one.